All right, guys, welcome back to another voiceover breakdown. This week looking at a very cool heel hook counter that I've been playing with. I sort of saw some Danaher Death Squad guys starting to play with these sort of back takes off leg locks. This was something that I had seen from one of them, but I sort of modified it a little bit more for my body type. So we will run through and I'll explain kind of how I'm doing it here, okay? So we'll start basically with, I think early recognition is always key in any sort of heel hook escape, defense, or counter, okay? You have to know what you're dealing with. You know, is it an inside heel hook? Is it an outside heel hook? Is it a knee bar, calf slice, or toe hold? Because sort of the defenses are gonna change and vary based on what's being thrown at you, okay? So what I recognize here is that my opponent has reaped over my knee, okay? And so he's got good position, good control, and he's triangling my legs on the other side that you can't quite see there. But he's got a good bite on my heel. And so I understand here that I'm in a reap position, that I'm in an outside heel hook. And so, again, understanding where you are is the key to escaping safely. If you just spaz out or don't know what you're doing, that's when people tend to get injured, okay? So I'm recognizing what's going on here. And we'll see this from other angles in a second. But what I basically look to do here is change the angle quickly, okay? You have to understand, I'm doing this slowly to sort of demonstrate the technique, but if you're stuck in a heel hook, you can't sit there and hang out and think too long, okay? I always encourage you to drill these things and practice heel hooks with people that you trust, that aren't going to crank anything, that you can kind of sit and think a little bit, because in real time, this is going to have to happen really fast, okay? So don't think that you can just camp out and sit there and watch, because your knee is going to get ripped apart, okay? But what I like to do is you'll notice that with my left hand, I'm posting on his bottom leg there. And I'll get into that a little more in a second later. But what I look to do initially here is turn the corner, so to speak, so that I'm almost sitting on his hip, okay? And part of the reason I do that is because it changes the angle slightly of his attack, okay? Can he still finish the heel hook here? He absolutely can. But the more I start to back up into him, the less leverage he has, okay? I'm not at a danger here, but I've created space by getting his foot sort of away from my body. I'm backing up into him, and I'm sort of preparing to backstep, okay? This will buy you maybe a second or two. Again, you can't hang out here. And also keep in mind that I'm playing with fire here, okay? If I wanted to just escape out of the leg lock, I wouldn't be doing this. So this is more of an advanced technique. This is something that you're going to do when you're more comfortable with heel hooks, when you are more experienced with them, okay? I wouldn't try to do this necessarily right off the hop in rolling. I would drill this and practice it and wait until you're more comfortable with it, because I don't want you to get hurt attempting this, okay? So again, I back up. You'll notice we're hip to hip. And I'm pushing into him. I'm sort of pushing off my hands and sort of creating some tension there, okay? So what I look to do now after I go sort of hip to hip here is I'm going to backstep over his hands, okay? So I'm going to get my leg all the way to the other side, and I'm going to get both knees on the ground, okay? Now, I sort of say backstep into safety here, and largely once you clear your opponent's body there and get both knees on the mat, you're usually out of danger, but not always 100%. He might still have a bite on your heel, and so you have to be careful. And again, if you're trying to play it safe here, you can always go for upper body control and sprawl out and get out of danger. But again, I'm sort of in the pocket here. I'm looking to quickly counter. So I'm basically in a good position here now. I'm nice and stable. I have his top leg trapped between my legs, okay? So you can't quite see it there. We'll see it in another angle in a second. But his leg is trapped. I've got his, my left hand is pushing his right foot to the ground there. So I do have some good control over his lower body here, okay? So what we look to do here, basically, I'm just going to pause it for a second, but it's important to, when you're going to roll, it's over the shoulder that's closest to his butt/hips, okay? I'm rolling over my right shoulder here. I don't want to roll over my left shoulder, okay? I almost want to roll so that my shoulder blades hit the mat, okay? It's not really quite a front forward roll. I'm not trying to roll away from my opponent so much as I'm trying to roll underneath their hips kind of thing, okay? So don't think that you should just dive forward, you're going to create too much space and the roll isn't going to work as well, okay? But remember, it's the shoulder closest to his hips. You can see my right elbow is almost kneeing him in the butt there, okay? So again, it's a nice tight roll. There's not a lot of space. And as I go through here, you're going to notice that I kick my legs through here. I'm just going to pause it here for a second. So you'll notice that I'm going to start to extend my legs here, and you'll notice even with my left hand, I'm guiding his foot forward with my arm there as well, okay? So I want both his feet to basically go in the same direction so that it forces him to kind of sit up on his side, and it'll expose his back as we run it right through there, okay? So my opponent is on his hip. Again, we'll look at this from another angle, but his back is clearly exposed. So I've extended my legs. I've pushed his one leg forward to clearly expose his shoulder blades, and I come up and get my seat belt here, okay? So we'll take a look at this from another angle in a second here. So I'm just going to pause it here. This is a good position now to see what's going on in terms of his triangle here. His legs are aligned. Again, he's reaping over my left leg. So what I look to do is post on their shin, okay? This sort of helps anchor his legs to the ground. It also gives me something to push off as I try to sort of turn the corner and go hip to hip here, okay? But the other reason I like to do it is because if my opponent were to start to lace his left leg through between my legs and behind my right leg, he could really start to limit my ability to move. He can really start to stop me from turning backwards. So I want to prevent that from happening, so I'm stuffing his hook here, so it's kind of giving me the control and the ability to move as opposed to him. The other thing that's really key here is as I backstep, I'm just in slow motion. You'll see what I do with my leg there. I try to disrupt their grip as I backstep, okay? Again, this is going to happen quickly, but I want to, as I backstep, try to either break the grip he has on my heel or at least weaken it so that it sort of takes me out of danger in another level as well. So backstepping is good, but if I can disrupt his grip and get his hands either weak or off my heel altogether, then you're going to be that much better off as you proceed through this technique and in terms of staying out of danger, okay? So as we go to move along here, this is a really key detail. This is where this is what I started to play with for me, okay? I sometimes struggle with, forward rolls and getting in twister hooks and all that. So I make this roll a little simpler by I escape my left knee here before I go to front roll, okay? And I say here, this will help you expose their back more effectively, and I'll show you why in a second, okay? So I just pop my knee out a little bit, and you'll notice here as I slowly roll onto my back here, underneath, bang, right there. That's what it does. You'll see my knee has escaped, and my left shin, sort of right where my ankle meets my shin, is wedged right behind his knee, okay? You'll notice my leg is sort of making almost like a 90-degree angle there. And the reason that's important is because it allows me now to basically just extend my left leg, and it's really going to move my opponent's hips, okay? If my leg was all the way through and sort of my knee was touching the back of his hamstring or the back of my knee, I don't get as good of a turn on this, okay? That's where some people might switch their feet here or switch their hooks. I like to extend my opponent away and make this easier for me, okay? So you'll see there that my foot's in good position. And watch as I do this here. I'm just going to extend my left leg, and look how far forward it throws him here, okay? Again, with my hand, I'm also guiding his leg across. You'll notice that with my left hand, I'm guiding his left foot over. So I'm kind of throwing it to the side, so it also helps get his feet going in the same direction. And again, when both feet are moving in the same direction, that's when you're going to get good back exposure, okay? So you'll see here when my opponent comes up onto his hands here, you'll see that my right leg is already a hook, okay? So I've got good position here. So the priority for me right now is to go chest to back, okay? So I sit up and I make contact and I make sure there's no space because, again, I don't want him to be able to, rotate away or turn his shoulder blades to the mat and escape. So I close that distance, and now I look to get my seatbelt grip here, okay? You'll notice I get a nice strong seatbelt grip here. And another important point is that I fall to the side that I already have the hook on. Okay, so I mentioned just a second ago, I have the hook already on the right side, and you can see it clearly there. I don't want to fall to the side that I don't have the hook, because then I'm putting weight on that leg, and I can't get the hook in, and I have to make all kinds of adjustments. I've got a nice seatbelt here. I fall to my right side, and now I have all the weight on the hook side, which means that my top left leg is nice and light, plenty of room for me to move it and establish that second hook and attack, okay? And you'll see me sort of do that here. I sort of grab his wrist, go for the choke, but I post my foot on his hip. There's all kinds of variations that you can do in terms of hooks on the back, so I'm not going to get into that, but you can get your second hook, you can go to a body triangle, whatever you prefer, and so that is basically a look at it. So I hope you enjoyed this sort of technique. I think it's a really interesting way to take the back. This seems to be kind of the new frontier in terms of leg locks in the more modern no-gi game. The Danaher Death Squad people, I think, have been ahead of this for a long time now, because they've been dealing with heel hooks in their gym for so many years under John Danaher. You'll notice in a lot of high-level competitions now, people like Ethan Krellenstein, Gordon Ryan, all those guys, they are so good at taking the back, especially off of outside heel hooks. So there's tons of different variations, stuff that I still need to learn and figure out, but this is one of my favorite ones. It's not super hard to pull off. You just got to get all these little details right, and I think you'll have some success with it. So I hope you enjoy the voiceover breakdown, guys. I hope you enjoy these techniques. As always, please subscribe. Please leave a comment below. Please share the video. I appreciate all the support, guys, and I will see you in the next one.